who has been the artist that you've worked with that has smelled the best? Like, who's got the best cologne game?
Oh my gosh. I've never been asked this.
Okay.
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry.
Oh, yes. She was,
Did you give her a hug?
yes, of course.
Was it amazing?
It was amazing. She's
Yeah.
so sweet. She's so
Okay.
lovely.
Of
She's
course
not
she
the
is. I
best.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, I can't do no small talk, no small talk. I'm not with the small talk. Can't be with the small talk.
My guest today on The Fringe, Unscripted for 5FM, is a young lady by the name of Jina Min. Jina has worked in the South African music industry for close on 2 decades now. She has done all sorts of very, very cool things at various record labels and various independent places as well. She's worked with the likes of Billie Eilish, Post Malone, Fireboy DML, and locally she's worked with some of my favorite artists in the form of Nasty C and Johnny Clegg, which we're going to be speaking about in detail later on. Jina, welcome to Unscripted.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Cool.
Good
So,
to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so being a music industry executive, we've got under the Unscripted banner, we've got a series called The Fringe, where we talk to people who are coming up. Some of them have worked with distribution people. Some of them have worked with record labels. Some of them are 100% independent. So I'm just gonna ask a question from my side. I play in a band, and we don't really do anything special in the sense that we don't really play gigs as often as we should. We don't post on social media as often as we should. We don't post music as often as we should. Why don't we have a record deal yet? Like,
Because you're not doing anything.
no, sure. Okay, so let's just run through what it is that you do on a daily basis.
Yes.
So when you work with artists, what are the kind of things that you're looking to do?
So I've been very fortunate to wear many hats in the industry. So like you've mentioned, I've worked at record labels. I've worked in the live elements of things. I've worked in distro. Well, so in terms of a large part of my aspect is taking artists and unknown artists and making them famous, to put it in a nutshell.
Gotcha.
So, but working closely with them with whatever resources the artist has already, and being able to leverage their brand, and being able to make that a tangible thing and marketable aspect of the industry.
Gotcha.
So, so in the past, I've worked in the marketing elements of things, and that's basically from anything from what their brand identity looks like to PR to what they sound. I don't work in A&R, so A&R is where they, what the sound is like. What I take the finished product and I take it to market. So once an album is done, once a song is done, that's when I take it to market and I take over from there. So it's like what their look is going to be like, what the photo shoot is going to be. I help coordinate that according to what the artist is comfortable doing, what their brand is going to look like, essentially. So music videos, photo shoots, content that is going to be produced, being put out there, and then from that. And then on the other side of it is working with DSPs. So DSPs are your Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, Deezer, Boomplay, AudioMac, working with them and seeing how we could use elements of what their brand identity is and being able to leverage that on those platforms. And that's more what I've been moving more into this past year, is working with the DSPs on that, and what, essentially, if you open the app, what you're going to see on those apps, essentially.
Got you. Okay, so you didn't mention radio in that.
Yes.
Is radio not a focus anymore?
Yes, no, absolutely. Radio, TV, all of that. So, and yes, sorry for not mentioning that, because previously in the past I have, worked in the PR elements of it, and
Yes.
that comes with the label side of it and the marketing side of it. So the whole promo and PR elements is also a very major aspect of what an artist's brand is, because it's how they're being perceived by the media and being how they are getting that to market, and getting, radio especially is so important, because you guys have a niche market in terms of who you listen to, who you cater for, and making sure that those artists are speaking to your audience, and that they can find their niche audience that way.
Got you. Okay. All right. So basically, what you're doing is you're taking the music and you're turning it into a product, essentially.
Yes.
And then it's your job to.
Sounds so clinical, but yes.
Yeah. But then your job is to take the product and put it in the hands of the right people who will obviously
Consume
advertise it and get it to a point where a song blows up or it goes viral or okay. All right, I get that. Okay, so let's take a look hyper local in South Africa at the moment. I'm going to be asking you a lot of advice questions today. Not purely for myself, because I know exactly what we're doing. We're just being silly. We need to find a proper bassist, and we need to stop getting drunk at band practices and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'm joking. We don't get drunk at band practices. We've only done it once. Okay, so I'm going to be asking you a lot of advice for young up and coming people in the industry at the moment. And the first thing that I'm going to ask is a little bit of a controversial question. How important is a record label deal to a young up and coming artist now?
Ooh, that is a controversial. Okay, so just off the bat, what I say is not the Bible. It's yes, it is personal opinion. It's just from experience and talking from experience being in the industry. Record labels and record deals have their role. It's when an artist reaches a point that they would need something like that. Like getting a record deal off the bat is not the be end and end all and the career defining elements of an artist. I think we live in a day and age where it's so important that artists are educated by themselves, are working and doing the work themselves, and able to understand every element of the music industry. And I think that's what we are finding a lot more artists are able to do. And I think once they reach a point where they develop their brand to take, and they've reached the ceiling essentially.
Right.
That's when it is so important to be able to have potentially a label or somebody backing you in that way, because there are different elements, particularly an admin aspect of it. Record labels have so many people that are, hyper focused on a certain role or certain elements. So if it's pitching to DSPs again, Apple Music, Spotify, being able to pitch your music to get onto those certain playlists, you'll have a person dedicated to those things.
Okay.
If you have a record label, have a PR person that is dedicated to pushing your brand across TV, radio, print and digital, all of those. So I think if you reach a point in your career where you're like, I need help now with more manpower, I think that's when it's an important element to be able to have a label. And also, labels are evolving so much, and they have been changing so much over the past 18 months even, in terms of what their role is and what they offer. And depending on the different deals that artists have, you'll get different elements of that aspect of a record label. So it really does depend.
Okay, so it helps, essentially.
It helps.
You can do it yourself.
You can do it yourself.
But,
absolutely. You can definitely do it yourself.
Cool. So from personal experience, one of the main reasons why our band is in the position that it's in is because we've taken a step back. It was becoming too much at a stage for us. It was becoming too much for me personally, because I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to find us gigs and do this and do this and do this. And there are various members of my band who are doing other things as well, getting it onto this. And I think it would help if we had a booking agent or a person who could put us in the right club or got us streaming and that sort of thing. So I get that.
Yeah.
But I want to use the example of Stormzy's first EP that he released, which ended up selling 70,000 digital sales in the UK alone. He did it independently, but then moved to a major label almost immediately. And he said on numerous occasions, and I don't want to misquote him, but he said on numerous occasions how much easier it does become.
Yes.
What would you say to the stigma of record labels taking a product and influencing it, or taking a raw underground hip hop artist and turning him into a hip hop artist kind of thing? Like, what's your feeling on that?
Yes, well, I think also one of the things is once an artist decides to go to a label, you have to understand that labels they have to make money. Like that is, at the end of the day, I mean, it's as cruel and as harsh as it is, they've got to make money. So they got to be able to take an element and make it marketable and make it profitable in a way. If they're going to be investing money into an artist, they got to see the bottom line. They got to see return on investments, essentially. So yes, in ways, people say they go to major record labels and it changes who they are. And some artists are very, very fortunate to go to these major labels and still keep true to what they are, but also you go to a label to have that advice and to have that extra soundboard to bounce off of and have the A&R and because they are the people that know what's working, what's going to be working, what's projecting in the market so that it's going to make money, essentially. Because it is a label. They need to make money. It's a corporation.
People need to eat.
But there are so many other elements that are independent. And if you are an artist that is, again, going back to you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing. And I think this is what is so important, is educating yourself as an independent artist to know every element of the industry yourself. So if you decide to go to a major label or go to any independent label, you understand how things are working already.
Right.
That, somebody can't pull the wool over your eyes.
Yeah.
Essentially. So, and it helps to, and there are definitely labels out there that see artists more as a partnership.
Yeah. I'm shocked at how many stories have come out of the last decade in South Africa, especially artists like MT and even going back, artists like Ladysmith Mambazo who don't own their masters all of a sudden, and that whole fight, and it's just it's always a bit of it always screws with my mind a little bit, because you're like,
absolutely,
how did you firstly end up in the situation? Secondly, where do you go from there? You know what I mean?
It's a lack of education, and I think that's the saddest part. And I think we are so fortunate now, I think in the past 5-6 years, to be able to be a lot more educated just as a South African music industry.
For
There's
sure.
an actual education element going around, a sharing of knowledge, and I think more sharing of knowledge needs to happen.
Yeah.
I think artists need to talk to each other a lot more, just in terms of how they're being treated, because I think it is a little bit of a taboo topic amongst artists to be able to talk about how they're being treated in different elements of it. And I think the sharing of knowledge is so important.
I agree. Yeah, which is why I think conversations like this are important. Okay, so you obviously deal with a lot of the product, but the product isn't going to exist until the actual tangible artistry is defined.
Yes.
And one of the major questions that we always ask as young artists is, how do we get gigs? So let's start with the hip hop industry in South Africa. What would be your advice to a Luna Florentino, for example, to get himself out of the clubs and onto the major stages?
I think let's rather keep it general, because I think that is saying specifically a market, because if you look at an R&B artist, there aren't that many elements, or even a metal artist, there aren't that many venues or gigs. There's only a certain amount of places that these artists can perform. So I think what is so important is actually building your content and your profile. And it's so, I'm sure people are tired of hearing this, but you've got to build what you have already, what you have tangible. So your TikTok, your Instagram, your YouTube, it's putting things out there, because it's being able to disperse in so many places now.
Yeah.
Globally even, you can be picked up just through that. And I think it just gives people an idea of what you're about, above and beyond what your own music is. A lot of artists, as I also suggest, is do covers or do other content or do other fringe content that can reach touch points in different areas.
Okay, I get that. All right, so we've had this discussion around this table on numerous occasions. It's about getting as much content out there, quality content that you can.
Yeah.
Okay, so how much?
And also, let me just add this, because I have experienced it with artists, is that they are so in their mind about the content that they put out.
Yeah.
That it's so curated, and I get that, because you got to be conscious of your brand. You got to be conscious of what you put out there, but also don't be too critical of it.
Got you.
It's about finding the flow of it.
Finding the flow, yeah. I think that's something that could be said about anything that's creative. It doesn't matter if if you write a book and you're editing your book, like learn when to move on. I know. Cool. All right. Last question about the industry, and then I want to talk about some of the artists that you worked with. One of the best pieces of advice that somebody gave me when I was coming up in the radio environment is go to the events. So go to the 5FM events and meet the program manager, meet the station manager, meet the marketing manager, learn their names, learn what they like, learn what they don't like. So that when they sit down with you and they say, hey, who are you and why should we employ you? You've got a rapport with them already.
Absolutely.
Could the same thing be said about labels and distributors, and should young artists be learning who works in their genres?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. I think that is so important. And I think we are, again, South Africa is in such a fortunate position at the moment that we have so many industry mixes and so many industry events that are happening, obviously in the major metropolitans. But if you're an up-and-coming artist, I would suggest definitely look out for those. See who to follow. is in the industry, who the key players are. It's not just the artists. There's an entire team behind these artists that are making and pushing buttons and making things happen.
Yeah.
And it's not just artist management. It is everything from partnerships like 5FM and media and digital and DSPs. It's go to those events or find a way of being in those events or educating yourself in those mixes.
Got you.
And being able to attend those. It's even something like a Twitter space.
Yeah.
Twitter Spaces is also so important at the moment because people
Spotify
are being able
Green
to...
Room.
Spotify Green Room.
Yeah.
These are things where people can connect and a flow of information, especially if you're not in a major metropolitan. You're able to go on Twitter. You can be able to be part of the conversation and meet these people online. How many relationships have been formed online on Twitter and Instagram and things like that? And you can do that. It's a possibility. You don't need to physically be there, but just know who the key players are. And most of the people are personable. They are able to be, you can approach them with questions and not just how to make me famous.
Exactly.
Not, I want to be famous or like, I want to get signed.
No, for sure.
Come with credible, because come with reasons why people need to care.
Okay.
If you're going to want to get signed by a record label or you find the key person for the record label, give them a background of who you are, what kind of artist you are, who are you influenced by? And also give them 2 or 3 songs that you've made. And it doesn't have to be polished, doesn't have to be mastered.
Yes.
Us from record labels, we are used to hearing lots of different sounds and we could see where things are going. Like we are, in tune with that.
Again, one of the best pieces of advice that I've been given is have a digital EPK, an electronic press kit, with a small write-up, a couple of your singles, and where we can find you.
Absolutely, and pictures too, because we want to see what you look like.
Yeah,
and I think that is so important because it helps us weeds you out from the rest. I want a record label, a record deal.
Yeah.
Why do you want a record deal?
Yeah.
Why must we care? What makes you a difference?
Cool. All right. So let's leave that conversation there. Let's talk about some of the artists that you worked with. Who has been the artist that you've worked with that has smelt the best? Like, who's got the best cologne game?
Oh my gosh. I've never been asked this.
Okay.
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry.
Oh, yes. She was just,
Did you give her a hug?
Yes, of course.
Was it amazing?
It was amazing. She's so sweet. She's so lovely.
Of course
She's
she
not
is.
the best.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Post Malone.
Yes.
You had the honor of giving Post Malone a plaque.
Yes.
Did you play beer pong with him?
It was no. So basically, he has his crew that he plays beer pong with.
And you're not allowed to?
No, we were there. We're a part of it, but I suppose it's a little stilted and a little weird to be like, hey, can I take over the game?
Got you. Especially when you're working. Like you.
Exactly.
I get that.
But it was awesome because he didn't expect it. He didn't expect to receive the plaque. So he was actually quite touched by that. So that was quite a sweet moment and tender moment to have experienced that with him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
How many? I know that you've got a relationship with Jordan Fish from Bring Me the Horizon. Yeah. How many artists do you talk to like on a daily basis? Like, hey, how's it going? Like, what did you have for breakfast? Kind of thing.
I don't obviously count. It's not one of those things where I'm like, it's so weird to say, but artists, if you work long enough with them, or they become your friends. They're not your friends, but also they are people. They are colleagues. They are people that you work with, essentially. So, I mean, there are some artists I don't work with anymore, but have become near and dear to me. Yes. I mean, a perfect one is Majosi. Like, worked with Majosi for the longest time at a label, and then he's actually become a really good friend of mine.
Nice.
So, yeah. Nice.
What's very interesting for me is not only your relationship with the artist, but the people around them as well.
Yes.
You've cultivated on numerous occasions. I've been able to speak to an artist manager or a booking agent or a sound technician, and we've been able to say, oh yeah, we're mutually friends with Jina, kind of thing. Are there people in South Africa, because the stereotype in the States and the UK and some parts of Europe is very much that you don't mess with the manager, if that makes sense. Is the same to be said in South Africa? Are artist managers scary? Or do you not find that? Do you?
I don't find that, but I think, what's so important is that, again, there's an entire team behind these artists. It's a whole working machine behind these people. And also what people don't realize is that the music industry is so teeny tiny. It really is so small. It's not just South Africa.
No.
Globally, it is such a small industry.
Yeah.
There are 6 degrees of separation with almost everyone. And I think what's so important and why certain artists do well is because they are nice to everyone and they're good to everyone.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's not being nice beyond compromising yourself, but actually just being a decent human being, because at the end of the day, we are all doing our jobs.
For sure.
The artist is too. And I think if you're easy to work with and nice to work with and pleasant to be around, people are going to keep you top of mind and want to work more with you. So going back to your question of, are artists managers in South Africa scary? It depends. It really does depend on, don't cross lines with people. Don't be a bad person, you know, like
be professional as often as you
be
can.
as professional as you can.
Yeah. No, cool. Okay. All right. So 2 questions before we wrap this up. I'm going to ask you to think about the Mount Rushmore of music. So I'm going to ask you to think about the 4 artists that you've worked with that stand out for you. We'll go through that last. But the last question that I want to ask is bands like Facing the Gallows playing Varken.
Yes.
Volvo Daniel playing insane tours in the States at the moment. I know that you're obviously very fond of the metal and alternative scene in South Africa. Do you want to just speak a little bit about the scene and where it's at the moment? Some of the bands that you're excited to see sort of grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for the metal scene. It's where I started out.
Gotcha.
I was 16 years old. I couldn't get into festivals, so I had to put on my own festival. That was all ages gigs, and that's where my knowledge of the music industry started. Was that I made my mom sit the door because it was the only one I could trust with the money.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, and it's been beautiful to see, especially bands like Facing the Gallows, who I've grown up with and watching, and to see them still going and still, you know, doing really, really well and having such great diehard fans as well is fantastic. And I think we are seeing an interesting phase within the music industry now, in that it's kind of in a way going back to what it was back in the day, where you see different genres on the same lineup.
Gotcha.
So you're seeing different people from that, because I think the industry has become so small and so niche. Like when there's a gig, everyone goes to that gig because they are so starved for decent metal shows. So
Gotcha.
I think we might see that, where we are going to see different genres of the metal scene coming together in one show.
Yeah, I like that, because it means that the alternative scene grows.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, that's how the alternative scene initially was, where you had punks and goths and
That's it.
you know, the diehard death metal fans at these shows all together, and that's how some of my closest friends came from different genres because of that.
Got you.
So,
Got you. Okay, cool. Give me your Mount Rushmore of music. The 4 artists that have been your and don't worry, like we can do honorable mentions as well. But the 4 people who you, or the 4 bands or the 4 groups that you've really enjoyed working with.
I mean, it's obviously going to be Johnny Clegg. He will forever have a very special place in my heart. Sure. I was very fortunate that straight after varsity, you know, I met Jesse Clegg, and you know, from there it was working with a whole bunch of Johnny Clegg's management.
Yes.
And from there it just was like a kickstarted my career after studying. So, and just working with Johnny Clegg and just seeing his, spending a lot of time and understanding his outlook on the music industry, and being able to tour and go all around with him was quite awesome. And he's such an incredible human being.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, artist number 2. Katy Perry's got to be on that list.
Katy Perry is cool, but I didn't work a lot with her.
Okay.
So, does it have to be artists?
No, it can be people as well.
Okay. Jim Jeffries, the comedian.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I forgot you did a lot of the comedy stuff as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Jim Jeffries was really, really cool. He came out here twice, and I did both his tours and worked with him in that. So that was a lot of fun.
Cool.
I think Post Malone is obviously going to be, you know.
Yeah, but you have a very soft spot for Post Malone.
Yes, I do.
Yes. Okay, cool. All right, that's fine.
Absolutely. I mean, we were one of the few regions outside of the US that broke Post Malone, that was listening to Post Malone and streaming his music before anywhere else in the world. So the same with Billie Eilish. Yeah. So those 2 artists are definitely quite close to me because, you know, especially somebody like Billie Eilish, where we noticed her music and what she was doing, and nobody would listen to to me and be
Yes.
like, you gotta pay attention to this girl.
Yeah.
And she was kind of like my I told you moments.
Got you. And then 6
So-
months later, she's the biggest artist on the planet.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was I like that I told you moments.
Something that you need to learn about radio programmers, and I can say this because I was one for many years.
Yes,
Is they don't
that's
know
how
what
we
they're talking
met.
about. Yeah. No, for sure. All right, last artist.
I think can I clump a whole bunch of artists?
Go out.
So I've been very, very fortunate to work with a whole bunch of West African artists
Okay.
in this past year. And I think I would like to just be able to clump all those.
whole of
and
West
just,
Africa.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
whole of West Africa has been
Cool.
such an incredible experience, and being able to understand the Afrobeat market, the African markets a lot more.
Got you.
Has been absolutely amazing. And I think, from artists like Fireboy DML, Ashake, Black Sharif, Burna Boy, all these artists have been absolutely incredible to work with. Benson too, and just seeing their brand grow this past year and being able to be a part of that in a very tiny way
Gotcha.
has been amazing.
Jina Min, thank you very much. You are probably the only unscripted guest that we've had that has been medically airlifted out of a canyon. In version 2 of this, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I can't do no small talk, no small talk. I'm not with the small talk. Can't be with the small talk.